Hi guys, Mr. Jaeger here, and welcome back to IAE 2954. Today is Alien Day, which means all of the weird, strange, and sometimes frightening stuff outside into the universe has decided to enter into our... Start again. It's Xeno Day. It's the day that I'm least... Well, that and Origin Day, but still. Hi guys, Mr. Jaeger here, and welcome back to IAE 2954. It's Xeno Day, where we get to look at the strange, the wonderful, and the somewhat alarming of the Star Citizen verse. So, without further ado, let's get cracking. So, going over to the map, we have got a pretty small selection of ships today, which hopefully means this episode's small. Optimism in that statement overflowing. Anyway, so without further ado, I want to get started right away. Though, to be fair, in the more recent years, Xeno ships have been coming up, and we have been seeing a few on the horizon. I mean, to be fair, you've got the Mirai, who kind of have done some Xeno ships. For example, they've got their whole Guardian-style things, which, because they're working in tandem with the Xi'an Empire, there are certain ships that are being benefiting from it. But this is the quintessential day for aliens. And if you're a fan of alien tech, then this day is definitely for you. But I wanted to start off by talking about the Blade. Yes, the Blade of, well, famously from the Vandal, that Esperia, in their infinite wisdom, decided to replicate inside the verse with their blade, glaive, and scythe and whatnot. Now, the Blade, the thing with Vandal technology, at least from our understanding, is it's a mixture between semi-organic and intensely tribalistic style technologies. Like, the thing with the Vandal is their technology is very advanced, but their society does not mimic us that of one that you could imagine being capable of producing this kind of stuff, which often gives the impression that these bastards nick everything under the sun that benefits them. And again, the essence of power of these particular vessels oozes something, well, rather freaky, to be brutally honest with you. And as the bad guys of Star Citizen, as well as Squadron 42, it's not really a surprise to see that these particular vessels are always considered to be a very serious threat whenever even some of them are seen. Now, I actually have surprisingly taken on a few of these things in combat. Sadly, not under Vandals, but one day I'll hope to provide some, some corpses for our glorious empire, but for the time being, I've only been able to destroy a few occupied by the more crazy of bandit groups. But still, this thing is quite a freaky style vessel with a rather, well, to be fair, a rather brutalistic mindset towards its flying mechanics. Unlike human ships and even some of the ships made by other Xenos, such as the Banu, the Altavarin, or even the Xi'an with their vessels, the Vandal ships have a very much... You're in this thing you're either in this thing to the death or you win the battle. So if we hop into this little ship, you can see crew comfort and everything else, not really the highest of priority. Views as well is very limited, and I'm not going to lie, having to be in prone in this kind of ship for an extended period of time just sounds horrible. It sounds horrible, to be brutally honest with you. But still, it is it's a rather impressive looking... oh, that's actually a player there. That's actually kind of cool. They look... For a second, I'm like, wait, what? But yes, so the Vandal Blade has a couple of size 2s on the front. Apparently this thing, when I went onto the wiki to look into this particular ship, all I could see was the 2 weapons on the side. It apparently has 4 size 2s. Ah, yes, it does. 4 size 2s underneath. I'm just going to scare this guy. Ha ha ha! Ooga booga. There we go. So, the Vandal Blade has 4 size 2 weapons, which obviously... can be quite terrifying. Doesn't describe what kind of weapon the Xeno is using, but regardless, it's not good. And it definitely and definitely is worthy of respect, if not revulsion, at the sheer scale of them. Now, I'm going to just go out here and say right now, not a fan of Xeno ships in general. You may in fact detect my particular loyalties to a certain area when it comes to dealing with Xenos, but at the same time, I can appreciate that there are some out there. Well, at the same time, I can appreciate that some of the ships that we have in here are in fact quite impressive, and some of them I do like the look of. But moving on to the second ship, this is the Banu Defender. The famous Banu Defender that is meant to go alongside the Banu Merchantman. Oh, this thing's blinking. Never knew that it did that. Okay, must be a unique thing. Now, this particular ship is known as the Crab by some of the players, and if you're looking at the central chassis, you can kind of see why. It's got a rather unique property. Well, actually, to be fair, it's got two unique properties when it comes to its ship complement. So it has a few size. It has like 4 size 2 Ignite 2 missiles, and it also has bed capacity and everything else. But the first major unique thing are these weapons. Now, these are unique to the Banu weapon itself, and they're known as Singe cannons. They're 4 size 3 Singe cannons, 2 on the main weapon port here, and I think a couple of them located more on the main chassis. Oh yeah, there, on the main chassis underneath. So the Singe cannon is what's known as a direct hit cannon. Unlike all of the other weapons in Star Citizen, which has a projectile that has to travel the distance between A and B, these weapons are designed specifically so that as soon as you look at your opponent, you press a button. The rate and speed of these things is so vast that these things instantly hit the target, causing rather a large amount of damage. Or at least it used to. I've yet to see this thing in combat since they nerfed it, because when this thing first came into combat, dear God Emperor, it was mental. What was scary was the fact that it wasn't the Banu Defender, though, who was using this thing. What people would do is they would take off these weapons, and they'd buy a Banu Defender, take the weapons off said Banu Defender, and put it on ships like the Arrow, the Gladius. So you had these really tiny, agile fighters instantly splapping people all over the place. It was ridiculous, and thus CIG had to quickly find a nerf for these things, because I don't blame them. But yes, no. So for this Xeno ship, the Banu Defender, well, the Banu grouping, which I'm not even going to begin to pronounce what that Xeno stuff is. But the Banu themselves, who are the first alien race that we actually encountered in the Star Citizen's history, made the ship bearable for humans to live in, alongside their own kind, which, fair enough. I can't honestly say I'm not exactly a huge fan of this Xeno stuff, but at the same time, there is living accommodations for 2 people in here. But no, the second unique thing about this vessel, aside of the fact that we look like we're inside a bloody animal, is the fact that both cockpits on here, and if we make our way further to the left, and open this one up, both the pilot and co-pilot seat are just as capable of being flown. So depending on your personal preference, you can fly left-hand side or right-hand side of the ship, which we have a look at this particular vessel here. Yeah, unlike the Van Doel ship, this thing actually looks somewhat reasonable. But there you go. So as you can see, it's got a few human amenities, a few sort of design mechanics and everything else, which is fine. Oh god. And in terms of visuals, you also have a pretty reasonably decent view around the ship, but this is down to more personal preference. So I would say it's a good view. Unlike certain cockpits of the previous people, we actually can see out the front, which is pretty nice. So overall, this particular vessel is, not bad. And as said, it's more slated as a kind of fighter to defend against, well, hence its name, to kind of help alongside the Banu Merchantman. But I'll be honest with you, it's more of a curiosity in my mind than anything else. And again, it's one of the typical alien ships. Looks weird, acts weird, does weird things. Its singe weapons are impressive and certainly something you should definitely respect, but other than that, it's just a Xeno ship. I do not personally like the Banu Defender because it's a Xeno ship, and as such, I feel that there are better ships that are made by Xenos that we'll be going further to as we proceed towards the Xi'an, the second biggest threat to the UEE. So, as we were making our way across the board to the Kartual, I wasn't joking when I said, welcome to the next biggest threat to the UEE since the Vandal. When I came over, I've only just, my brain has apparently finally clicked into the knowledge stem, but the guns you are seeing on this thing, the Kartual, is in fact size 4 Rhino repeaters, which is mental, considering the size of this ship and what it's a light fighter, figure quote light fighter, by Xi'an standards, and it most certainly has a pretty freaking menacing presence on the field. Oh, good God. Yeah, this thing is pretty menacing. So the design of this particular vessel is Xi'an in nature, one of the more advanced creatures of Xenos in the verse at the moment, and while the Xi'an and the UEE Empire aren't exactly good friends, we're no longer in a state of Cold War that previously the older regimes and other elements previously encouraged. I still wouldn't be friends with the Xenos, but at the same time, they do have a. At the same time, you do have to tip your hats to them when it comes to technology and equipment. So one of the main benefits of this ship, as well as the fact that it's designed in a way to be very highly maneuverable, is the design plateau makes it work like a B-Wing does. So as you take off, it sort of looks like this, but then press the button, and this thing becomes a B-Wing, and it becomes very highly maneuverable. The other benefit, as you can see, is with the exception of possibly the struts along the side, you have got absolutely incredible levels of vision. Seriously, it is ridiculous. Now, one of the drawbacks of this particular vessel is the fact that it doesn't actually have any missiles. It is solely defending itself with these size 4 Rhino repeaters. But still, size 4 Rhino repeaters on a vessel this quick and this small, yeah. I'm surprised I've yet to see more of these Xeno ships around the verse, because that's a pretty impressive weapons loadout. Sure, there probably are some good reasons as to why not many people utilize them, probably because, well, rightly so, it's a Xeno ship, but for those who want to have a bit of speed and firepower on their side, this is something that we need to be very careful of. AOPA, being the company responsible for this, somehow has been able to strike a decent deal with the Xi'an, or if they are part Xi'an themselves. I need to do my research on the lore for the Xi'an. But yeah, these Xeno ships are very much ships to be wary of, and they do deserve respect. I'm gonna say that straight up. They deserve respect, but they are the enemy. Don't forget, they are Xeno in nature. So make sure when you're encountering any of these particular things to be extremely careful, otherwise you might be on the wrong side of one and unfortunately caught out in the shit, which is a bit of a shame. So we're going to skip by this next one because we're going to be looking at the original for the next vessels of ships. So for this particular race of creatures, the Tavaran have a rather unique design or avian style design to their vessels. This being for this ship, for example, being the Talon. So the Talon has a number of unique properties to it. The first is its avian design is intended as a kind of frontline, front-facing shield system, due to its shielding system being based off it's designed as a phalanx shield system. So what it would do is the Tavaran tactics would be to unite together. So you'd have like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 Tavaran ships working together, and instead of operating with their own shield systems like before, you would instead have them all close up together, and they would form a massive impenetrable wall. This particular tactic was utilized a lot by both in the First and Second Tavaran Wars. The second being more notable due to the fact that the leader of the second fleet of Tavaran fleet was almost successful in defeating the UEE forces completely, and was only defeated, thank the Emperor, by a squadron, I believe, 999, who was able to take advantage of a momentary weakness as they're trying to jump through a jump gate / wormhole, resulting in the famous art painting that is where burning skies over their homes, over their home world. It's quite an impressive artwork when you look into it. But yeah, no, the Tavaran war, the Tavarans' Bushido-style spirit and martial prowess certainly was reflected in very powerful, very dangerous vessels. And the fact that we can still experience these things is pretty impressive. Esperia likes to do the bad guys for some reason, which is weird. I don't know why, but still. So, for this particular ship, you've got a pretty decent array of weapons. You have 2 size 4 lightning strike 4 cannons, which gives some pretty impressive levels of firepower, followed closely by 4 size 2 missiles as well, which you can see loaded onto this thing. The other unique property about this vessel, well, there's 2 more unique properties. The first is that the craft itself, when you hop into the cockpit, which is a little bit slow. It's a little bit slow. There we go. And we pull back. There we go. So this particular ship, along with any other Tavaran vessel, doesn't have any windows in its display. Instead, it utilizes the power to project an image and from the outside in, giving you total cover and protection, which is, pretty cool, because then it gives that sort of imposing element. And the actual pod itself, the cockpit pod that we're in, actually detaches, and it allows you to fly off into space if you're in a rather hazardous environment, giving you that ability to escape from the danger zone if and when the time occurs that you need to escape. So the Talon, being a very effective fighter, gave the UEE quite a lot of hell, especially in the early days. But the vessels that are designed to give you just as much, if not slightly more so, is the Talon Shrike, the missile boat version. Because the Talon Shrike, you're going to love this, the Talon Shrike has up to 24 size 3 missiles. It has a freaking it's a fucking spamathon of missiles with 2 size 2 light strike 2 cannons to compensate. So not as much DACA on the cannon side of things, but you do have a absolute bugger ton of missiles to spam into that. So yeah, major threat indication when you see this vessel, but still a very impressive piece of kit regardless, and certainly one to be wary of when going into the combat. To be fair, unlike the Xi'an and the Vandal, who remain, Vandal was the UE declared war on them in 2015. No, I think it was 2016, following the Battle of Argo. Was it Vega or Argo? No, Vega was 2015. Argo, I can't remember the specific thing. I want to say Argo, or Ares. Something along the A in mine. They basically have become number uno enemy, and the UEE has declared war on them. The Xi'an used to be a Cold War opponent, still is not. We're not on the friendliest of terms with the Xenos, and understandably so. The Tavaran, however, have been embraced into society. Banu are just traders with everyone, so so they're friends with everyone, so it's really difficult to put them as a bad guy, unfortunately. But the Tavaran are the race of creatures that have actually, while we've basically absorbed their empire into the UEE, they have been doing some pretty impressive works, and one of them, in fact, was elected as a senator within the UEE Senate Assembly. So pretty impressive stuff, and very much looking forward to seeing what else they could contribute towards the UEE. So, as we make our way towards the last few ships along the line here before we have a look at the Sulin, we're now having a look at one of the more recent releases of AOPA, which is the Santok Yai. So the Santok Yai is when this particular ship came out, I want to say 2023, but I could be wrong. Okay, so it was announced 2948, but it's only just come out this year, I think. possibly mid to late last year, but this is the first real year that I think it must have either come out mid to late last year, or it was early this year that it was finally released. But the Santokyai is is classed as a medium style vessel that is being utilized by Xi'an forces. Its aesthetics definitely, again, it's an enemy ship, but it is impressive in its design philosophy, and certainly is worthy of respect, to say the least, when it comes to how it operates and how it does stuff. In terms of weapon armament, it has 8 size 2 Tempest 2 missiles, and it has a unique Xeno weapon, which must be these things here, which is called a Yang 2 repeater, which has 4 size 3 Yang 2 repeaters, so you can see along here that sort of element. And the Santokyai also has this sort of it opens out sort of thing, which is pretty cool. And again, it also has a high level of it has a high level of maneuverability, so your repeaters are able to do quite a fair amount of damage whilst also doing some stuff. So I'm going to enter the pilot seat and see what this thing... Oh god, what is this thing? Oh, that's weird. Okay, so this is the internals. Yeah, this thing has very high this thing has very high visibility. Unlike the lessons they've taken from the Kartual is that you can't see in front of you, or if you have 2 giant struts in the middle of your ship, it's going to be very difficult to see where you're going. And this thing also moves up, around, and down as well, so yeah, okay. Yeah, this thing has high level of precision, but it also is it's a really kooky style design element towards it, and I don't like that. I don't like that. Yeah, no. Very Xeno. Very Xeno. I mean, as said, it's in terms of its aesthetics, it looks impressive, and it's certainly got a pretty decent array of weaponry, but yeah. I've yet to see this thing in combat, to be brutally honest with you. A lot of vessels inside Star Citizen you don't often see in combat. I suppose that the most common vessel I've seen in the verse in terms of combat, prowlers, the occasional Shrike, but prowlers are the most common I've personally seen. Not seen a Santokyai, not seen a Kartual. I have on a few occasions encountered a Blade as well. Glaive is another vessel I see quite a decent amount of. I've fought a couple of Banu defenders, but not really commonly, put it that way. So I've yet to see any significant things. To be fair, I don't recall if I've encountered a Talon. I don't recall seeing them very often, so I wouldn't exactly say they are a common occurrence in the verse. Moving to the second vessel, as mentioned, this is the Prowler. The Prowler is probably one of the only Xeno ships I will say I fully like in terms of both its aesthetics and its practicality. The Prowler is a troop transport vessel / heavy fighter designed to get your squad into the thick of it and get you also into the thick of it, whilst also then being able to get yourself out, whilst also potentially giving you the ability to provide additional support. It's a very powerful vessel with a lot of firepower in regards to it. It also is very useful as you can see by these ground emitters here, it also is really good at flying low atmo, giving you an edge when it comes to stealthily deploying your forces into enemy territory, or perhaps it's a good idea to go for something that gives you the edge in terms of... Yeah, I'd say it gives you the edge in terms of your ground forces. A lot of Spec Ops teams could potentially be inserted using the Prowler, which is pretty menacing. So in terms of weapons, you've got 2 size 5 Deadbolt 5s, which are what these weapons are at the top. And then you've got about 2 size 3 Light Strike 3 cannons. And then followed that, you've also got a few... Actually, you don't have any missiles, unfortunately. Like Like the Cartual, you don't have any missiles, which is kind of surprising, but still. The other thing that's unique about this vessel, though, is these little wingtip things here. You can actually have them land down and provide cover for your troops that are wanting to come into it. So we'll have a look at the back just so you can see how to get in. Because what you do here is we open up the door. There's multiple ways you can get in and out of the vessel. But this rear entrance here, which is also kind of a mesh to prevent people from dying from asphyxiation when the power's on. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to deploy your troops as soon as you... So you basically, you can open up all of the doors and exteriors, and all of your troops who are locked into place on this particular thing to avoid themselves getting tripped over or anything else like that, can all jump out the sides and get ready to fight on the front lines or deploy stealthily to your objective. There's also a secondary entrance along here, alongside the ship. And this isn't the, as you can see, this isn't the main pilot seat. This is a co-pilot seat. But like the Banu Defender, you actually have the ability to fly from that cockpit. But no, this is the entrance to the cockpit. Very similar and pretty much exactly the same as the Talon series of ships. But as you can see by its design frame, it's very, very sort of nimble in the side of this thing. You don't want to be a fat person in this particular ship because you die with all the angles poking into your belly or whatever. You've also got additional, I want to say chairs, but really I want to call them lock positions, which allows you to get, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 4 to 14 individuals, including the crew, are able to hop into this vessel and get the most out of their time. Oh, there we go. Yeah, up to 14 members of the crew. Oh, is there another couple of seats there? Oh, there's a couple of extra seats. 14, 15, 18. So yeah, 18 members of crew. I was going to say, I was like, how many people can hop in this thing? I want to say about 18. Because ground manners, transforming mechanics, rapid deployment. Yeah, it should be up to 18 people in terms of its stealth tech merged with its ability to deliver high levels of firepower in regards to that. So this thing, quite a menacing vessel, and as I said, the only Xeno ship I personally like the practicalities and its aesthetics. And finally, we have a rather old design vessel known as the Glaive, which I have actually on occasions fought as well, which is kind of hilarious. So the Glaive is a Vandal ship, or at least it was a depiction of the Vandal from a time before any major attacks come along. Xperia making this vessel upon hearing the scattered reports from what survivors of the Vandal attacks occurred, and decided to add their own unique flair to it. So, and from what little garbled bits of information they could find from the survivors, as well as any surviving records. As vessels go, it's not a bad ship. It's got a decent array of weaponry, but it's also very limited in what it can do. It's very big as well. So it's designed for... yeah, it's more a good design to encourage people... Well, it's a good design to sort of see where you... to sort of give a rough estimation for the Vandal. But at the same time, if you're looking for an actually correct form, then you're better off going with the more recent additions to the Vandal sort of elements. This thing has the same, again, the same kind of cockpit that other Vandal ships have, but again, due to the inaccuracies of Xperia's first real foray into this, the assumption of comfort was placed into this particular vessel. So you're not likely to see... Yeah, the build and design templates for this particular thing are not as accurate as they would be for future editions of the this particular ship, because yeah, it turns out when you only hear scattered reports of what the Vandal would eventually become, you're not really going to get the best information to do stuff, which is kind of hilarious. For the most famous of the for the more famous side of the... going towards weapons and systems, for the more famous, the large elements here, is you do have quite a large weapon. 2 size 5 Wrath weapons, which is these big these big buggers here. And you've also and then you've got a couple of size 2 weak repeaters, which again, limited forms of understanding by Esperia at the time meant that this thing was what they thought what a glaive would look like. And obviously we learnt the truth the hard way at the Battle of Vega, as well as other things in regards. So not a good time for humanity, from humanity's limited understanding of the Vandal at that point. But you can't blame someone for just for what you can't really blame Esperia after getting those reports, because there weren't that many alive to tell the tale. As we approach towards the end of the day, we are presented with the Sulin, which I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, but we are presented with one of the most unique of starter vessels inside Star Citizen. The Sulin, designed by Gatak, is based upon a Xi'an design, which allows people to... Yeah, it's apparently a cargo ship, which describing by the... going by the description that's been given, is basically a ship that can cater both to Xi'an and human pilots. Its cargo capacity is 6 SCU, so it's not a huge amount of cargo. And in terms of weapon systems, it's got a decent amount of weapons. 12 size 2 Ignite 2 missiles, 3 size 3 Panther repeaters. It's also got apparently a rather large quantum fuel tank, which is kind of impressive. And maybe if going into Pyro, this thing may have a distinct advantage over such vessels such as other ships of its size. Which, okay, fair enough. But it's also very alien in its design. So what we'll do... Oh, hello, someone's already... Thing. Yeah, the big thing about this particular vessel that I would say is not so great is it's very cramped. Very, very cramped. There are a few doors and other things that allow people to... Yeah, there's a number of other things that allow you to... yeah, you've got like components and everything else. I don't know if this particular thing... So you have the first, second, and... Yeah, oh, okay, someone just died. Someone actually fully died. Yeah, someone just couldn't escape. Wow, couldn't escape, so decided to suicide. GG. But yeah, so you do have a bed in this weird Gatak-style vessel, and you do have a few living accommodations as well, which, if you go into here, you can see there's a toilet. I assume there's a toilet somewhere. I'm going to press into this to see if this opens up. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, to be brutally honest with you. But they do have a living accommodation in tow, which allows any particular pilot who has been utilizing utilizing this vessel to be able to do that. And then you hit the upper area here, which then takes you into the main pilot seat, which I think, what does this do? Oh, this opens up into more components, so not an actual thing. And then obviously if you want to hop into the pilot seat, you sit down here, you look up, oh boy, and then you... Yeah, you look straight up. Yeah, it's weird, and it certainly has... yeah, it's definitely a unique ship, to say the least. And I think, to be fair, this reminds me of the one that I might have done back then as well. But yeah, no, this thing is by far a strange vessel. Certainly one that, unfortunately, I will say, it's one of those things that I'm just like, no. I personally am not a huge fan of this particular type of vessel. It's impressive in, like, if we're going to come out of character for a second, I will say this. In a technical sense, it's a rather impressive vessel for CIG to produce, and as such, it's an impressive vessel to produce, and certainly a kooky one that allows people to fully, to give it as a kind of experimentation. You do need these kind of one-off wacko ships that really sort of set a stage. But I'll be honest with you, really doesn't sound appealing to me. Again, I am not a huge fan of Xeno ships. There are very, very few ships that I would personally say are well worth it. So, no, I will happily say, an impressive design technically, but not something I'm personally interested in. As we make our way downstairs, we come across a corpse of an unfortunate victim, and I think I know what the murderer was. This is the Nox, a rather infamous vessel in my opinion, given to the fact that this thing could easily kill its own rider more than its intended target with its 2 size 1 repeaters. This is basically a speed bike, the Nox, and it's a very fast, very agile piece of kit. But it is also incredibly lethal, which, as that poor bastard over there found to his imminent demise, it's not an easy vessel to control. To be fair, it's been a very long time since I last used a hover bike, but at the same time, the biggest thing I remember most of all is that the Dragonfly was, because of its prongs, it was a lot safer to fly around in and was a lot more skimmer bike friendly. The Nox, on the other hand, no protection for its riders or users, which meant that you could very much easily angle your ship into the ground and you could destroy your ship with no problem. It was mental. And before the whole physicalization of inventory and death and everything became a factor, it was kind of hilarious because we'd have like 4 or 5 people flying these things and smashing into the nearest planet. It was fucking hilarious. But now, not so much. Unfortunately, to that person's demise, which... bastards. Anyway, moving on to the display hall to wrap today's day up. We now make our way to the holodeck, whereupon... oh no, not another one. Oh, not another... Damn you, Xenos! Fucking Nox. This is how much bodies it just people have encountered. This is the remnants of poor bastards who were attacked by the Nox. I'm going to blame all of those deaths on the Nox. Ah, yes, right. So, the Banu Merchantman. This particular ship is either very famous or very infamous, depending on your particular perspective. The Banu Merchantman, for those who don't know, is a large capital-esque size ship which has the capacity to do trading, negotiating, or even to a small degree setting itself up as an outpost. It's basically what the Banu use to fly around and do trading missions in. It has a hangar that allows you to get into, in which a defender can get into. It also has a pretty decent cargo capacity, 2,880 SCUs worth of cargo, which obviously you can put to good use keeping that stuff going. But as mentioned before, it's more designed as a kind of base / marketplace sort of thing, as you have an enclosed marketplace / bazaar, a dedicated negotiating room, which the Xeno Banu like to do quite a lot on. They're also, as mentioned, quite a sturdy little craft, being a capital ship after all, and famously, and again, or infamously, this particular ship has been in development for quite some time, being originally announced all the way back in 2013. So, over 10 years ago. Oofed. But this particular ship is, as always, the vessel that eventually will come out, I'm sure. Owing to probably some of the more recent developments in Star Citizen, we may start to see this thing come into the verse. And I know that when it does finally decide to arrive in the verse, we're either going to see a massive horde of people go nuts for it, or we're going to see 1 or 2 guys go, finally, and croak because their life support system gave out. But still, the Banu Merchantman, a vessel that is impressive in its scale, and also quite impressive in what kind of future it holds, because those kind of ships you could set up somewhere, and that could be a dedicated area for a while. I wouldn't say it's the place to live there forever, but certainly well enough that you can see some good stuff in regards to that. Ah, this thing. Yes, the Gatak Raylin, or Rylin, or whatever you want to pronounce. I don't know how to pronounce this thing, but still. So this thing is a Xi'an ship. Oh, nice. Oh, that's the new helmet I can see. That's actually pretty impressive armor. Not a huge fan of the helmet, but the armor itself looks pretty decent, so yeah. So the Raylin is a dedicated cargo ship for the Xenos, and it has some pretty impressive design characteristics using some weird kind of triangle displays. And holding onto its cargo, it almost it's like a blend between the Hull series of ship and I don't know if it is. It almost looks like it's a Hull series of ships because it's got its cargo on the outside, which good fucking luck trying to get yourself into a normal port with that. Ensure freight remains. So it is like a Hull series of ship, only shit because it only has 320. Well, anyway, it's designed for, what, a crew of 1 to 4. So you've got, like, the pilot, and then you've got the gunners on the side, as well as whoever wants to be the co-pilot. So this particular ship is designed to ensure medium cargo hauling with an additional gravlift technology, and you can also live in it with sleeping pods, and a gallery, and everything else. So supposedly an impressive array of weapons and defense systems, but nothing too aggressive because, you know, it is a Xeno. It is a merchant vessel after all. That looks like a door. Yeah, that looks like a docking door. Maybe this thing, when it lands, it kind of flaps down a bit. But, I mean, it's a Xeno ship, so maybe it'll land and you can see it, or maybe not. But if it's going to do something like what the Hull series of ships can do, then I can tell you now it's not going to do a very good job, because the Hull series of ships will do that and more. Fuck tons more. Yes, it's less defendable. No, it is a bit less defendable. You do need some escorts for it, but then again, you might need the same for this. But yeah, so overall, I'd say it's an intriguing concept that probably I need to see further developed before I can see its potential. But from what I'm seeing, it kind of just looks like a shit version of a Hull series of ships. But there you go, that's what Xeno ships are like. Anyway, that does it for today. So this session, hopefully, as I said, this session is always the smaller episodes whenever this comes out. Any Xeno days or certain ship developers tend to be the slightly less in terms of what features and functionality there are. There aren't a huge amount of Xeno ships in Star Citizen. I don't exactly mind that particular fact, but at the same time, I can appreciate if you want to have something rather unique, or something that sort of says, hey, look at me, I am a unique vessel, then of course, you know, something to keep in mind when handling all those things. But still, I will say that some of these ships are cool, some of these ships definitely are going to be impressive, and depending on when the Banu Merchantman finally does decide to grace the universe with its presence, that'll be the day for sure. But anyway, thank you all so very much for watching. If you like this kind of content, do let me know in the comments section down below, clicking on the like button, and of course subscribing to the channel. I've already uploaded, by the time this episode goes out, I'll probably have already uploaded all of the other episodes up until then, and so hopefully we'll be able to sort of play a little bit of catch up to getting to it, and we get ever closer to the penultimate day, the day that I am personally most excited for, but I am also most dreading. The 27th to the 28th. Tomorrow, though, is RSI Day, and that, my dear friends, is going to be quite the occasion and quite the episode. So, without further ado, once again, thank you so much for watching. Apparently, I'm all the way back there. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I will catch you next time. This is Mr. Jaeger, signing out.